So what made you decide to give up and retire now from Leafs TV?
Well, just to spend a little more time with my wife, Alicia, and take advantage of health and get away from the grind a little bit after 41 years. And so we didn't know when I was thinking about this decision that COVID would kick in, but it has. And now here we are, and there's still no hockey. I'm doing a podcast right now, which is a lot of fun, but a lot of work, as you know. And it's keeping me active, and it's allowing me to read a whole bunch of books that I normally wouldn't get a chance to read. So all in all, still enjoying it and getting a chance to still talk with you and people like you from time to time, which is keeping me fun, happy, and busy.
Talk about the podcast. When can people catch it? And just like Kipper's got his every day at noon, when can we find your podcast?
Well, it's called The First Question. And the title, because I usually ended up with the first question in these Maple Leaf scrums over the last 20 years. It's sponsored by a company, a board game company called Ballistic Sports, Biliztik. It's just out, and it's to bring, I guess, attention toward their product. They put it together. I give it to them. They put it together, and it's on all the various social media platforms. But you would go to Ballistic Sports, just pump in my name or The First Question, and away you go. I've got about a dozen already shot. We've got Ken Dryden coming on this week, Brian Burke last week. And so these are all exciting guests. Luke Shen, Stanley Cup champion, Tyler Bozak, former Stanley Cup champion, Darcy Tucker, looking to get Doug Gilmour on shortly as well. So all a great deal of fun.
Let's talk about the Leafs. They signed. Do you think the Joe Thornton signing was a good signing for them? And do you think there'll be a lot more pressure when we start hockey?
I think Joe's handled enough pressure. I think this is just gravy for him. He gets an opportunity at the Cup, one last opportunity, I think, with a really good hockey club that's starting to mature. As far as Joe's position, Ashley, he's going to help out the younger guys. In fact, he's going to help out JT, John Tavares, who is always going to be there to answer the call after a game win or lose. Austin, Willie, Mitch, not exactly as comfortable as they'd like to. They'd certainly always be there for the club. But having somebody like Joe, Wayne Simmons, a few other veterans, Spets, of course, all a part of it, I think it just shares the leadership in that room. And Joe's been around for such a long time. He's the oldest forward in the National Hockey League now, playing for $700,000. This is all about getting a chance to win a cup. So I think he's going to be motivated in that regard. But I think the extra wisdom and leadership that he brings to help complement what JT brings is only going to be good for the rest of the club. And guaranteed, Austin, Mitch, and William are going to be happy to let those guys do a little more talking compared to what they've done, especially Austin, who's always been there as well. William, not so much, but he's going to have to do less now, which he's going to be very, very happy about.
What have you heard as far as them starting? Are they going to start in January? I mean, I had a Board of Governors meeting. What did you take out of the Governors Board meeting? What about this Canadian division? How's that going to work? And how are they going to work the playoffs then?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the Canadian division is a distinct reality. We certainly historically have been better in the last 7 months than our American neighbors in regards to COVID. That said, we are in the midst of a second wave as well. The number's certainly not as big as what we're getting stateside. We're a tenth of the population, however. However, in our big cities where the density is pretty comparable, we've done a decent job. So I see the Canadian division happening. I see the season maybe starting sometime in January. I could see probably 54 games. We don't want this thing to go deep into the summer. As is, it's going to probably go into mid-July. That's late enough, I think, for everyone involved. I can see a Canadian champion emerging and then playing off against the variety of other hubs that would come out of the United States, and you go from there with another altered form of playoff before we can get this virus under control and back to where we once had it with our regular divisions and conferences and all that went with it. But that's not going to happen this winter. Yes, a Canadian division is a reality, and it's easy. No one has to cross borders.
What about your different guests that you've had? You're going to have Dryden. Talk about what they've brought and what you've learned from the guests in your podcasts.
Well, the first one we shot, and we thought we were going to get to use the very next day, was Rick Vive. He's got a book that's coming out next week. And Rick called and said, hey, no, I forgot. You can't run it until mid-November. My publisher is going to have my head. So we've put that on hold, but it's going to be an interesting read. The family he grew up with, the pressure in terms of things not being quite so comfortable at home with his mom and dad, especially his dad, and leaving home to play hockey in Sherbrooke and then eventually down to Birmingham and then up to Vancouver. These podcasts have really delved into books. I'm reading Ken's book, Scotty, of course, and Scotty Bowman. If you haven't read it, Ashley, it's just outstanding. So many great stories and written so well as only Kenny can write it. I've read Doug Gilmour's book. We're going to have Doug coming on as well, his story. Dan Robson, a tremendous young journalist who's written 5 books, including one on Pat Quinn. So we got into Pat. Sammy Jo Small, a backup goaltender for those great Canadian women's Olympic teams, and talking about her perspective and the rivalry, I think, which is the greatest rivalry in hockey, Canada, USA, women's hockey. I can't wait for every Olympic final. So it's allowed us just to get into that and touch base with some good friends from the past. Tyler Bozak, Stanley Cup champion. Luke Shen, Stanley Cup champion. Both outstanding people. I've got Dave Bolin coming on as well, 2-time Stanley Cup champion with the Chicago Blackhawks. So it's just an opportunity to sit back for 40 minutes and tell some stories and find out a few things that I thought I knew, but I did not know. And these players and authors, certainly in a comfortable environment, have been more than willing to tell their fair share. So, and Scott Driscoll, former NHL linesman, 28 years, we share a mutual passion for World War II history. But, you know, the story in him being a walk-on at Pat Quinn's Vancouver Canucks, fighting Gino Ojic, Pat giving him bloody hell during a game, and Scott coming up to him saying, you're the reason I'm a linesman in the National Hockey League. You cut me. So it's that kind of thing. So that part's enjoyable, but the work to get prepared, and especially this upcoming podcast with Ken Dryden, it has overwhelmed and over-encompassed what I've been doing in terms of my preparation, and then whittling down an 800-page book in my Kobo reader into about 25 pages of legible questions to engage Ken in a conversation I'm looking forward to.
I know why your daughter became a lawyer. I could see where she got it from.
Oh,
anyways, his daughter's a lawyer.
My brain power is nowhere near what my daughter's is. She may have got some of the passion, but what's between the ears, she's so far ahead of where I'm at. We might joke about it, but it's the truth.
Okay. What do you think what do you think the Leafs need to get themselves to that second level? And how's the new coach, the guy that took over for Sheldon
Keefe?
Here's the deal. The core of this team, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and Hyman, this will be their 5th year together. They've made the postseason 4 consecutive years. And you've got to lose and you've got to learn before you can take that next step. Now you throw John Tavares in. He's been here for a couple of years. I think this core is ready to take that next leap. And Thornton, Simmons, that kind of leadership. Alex Barbanoff, who's coming over from Russia, we'll see if he's able to make the starting grade, but I think he's going to be able to. But I think more importantly, actually, is where they got better on defense. With all due respect to Cody Ceci and Tyson Barrie, wrong places, wrong time, both very good people, both good defensemen. I think they're both going to flourish in their cities next season. Much more so than they did in Toronto. But TJ Brody comes on. He'll complement Morgan Riley. And then what I really like is Mikko Lehtinen, the reigning KHL defenseman of the year. I think he's going to have a tremendous season and adapt to North America quickly. They've got more depth, and Zach Bogosian as well. They've got more depth, and they're tougher. And I think this is all going to help out as they get ready for what I think will be a 54-game season. And the depth comes in Travis Dermott and a pair of former first-rounders in Rasmus Sandin and Timothy Liljegren. This is depth the club hasn't had. The only knock, I think, in this entire group, there's only 2 right-handed shots amongst them. That's Justin Hall and Zach Bogosian. Hall last year, right side defense, top pairing. He's a good defenseman, but that's not where he should be. I think he's placed properly, and they've got a healthy Jake Muzzin coming back. So I think they're going to be tougher, and they've got more depth on the blue line. That's going to make everybody better. And then we'll see how healthy they can stay. But I think this team's ready to win a series, and then we'll go from there. And Frederik Andersen, he's in the last year of his contract. He's got plenty to prove. And I think he's going to get an opportunity to do that. This is a big money-making season for him. He's got a better team in front of him, especially on the blue line. So I think as optimistic as I always am, I think I'm legitimately optimistic in what will be an airtight season. But for Canada, it's just going to be like old school days. It's just going to be all Canada all the time for the media, just one anthem to listen to. And that'll be kind of enjoyable in its own right. They drop the puck maybe a minute and a half sooner than they normally would. But it's going to be an interesting run, and we'll see where it all comes out of. I think of all these Canadian teams, Toronto would have to rank at or pretty near the top of where this group is. So maybe a chance to get out of this division and then try their luck with some of those great American-based clubs as the summer progresses in 2021.
What do you think about Montreal? I think Montreal is a significantly better team this year than they were, signing Allen and Edmondson and Toffoli.
Yeah, they're better, and I like Tyler Toffoli. He's going to enjoy playing in Montreal and getting a chance to come home to play in Toronto, something he didn't get to do often when a member of the Los Angeles Kings. Of course, they're going to be better, and they're going to be better right from the get-go, actually, because of who they've got in nets in Carey Price. So it'll be tighter. Ottawa's going to be much better. They're still a few years away, but they've got a heck of a farm system. And although they're going to be near the bottom of this group, I think they're still going to be much better. And you look across the country with Vancouver and what they were able to do last spring, and the two Alberta-based teams, and Winnipeg. Winnipeg's another club. We'll see what their window is like, but they were decimated by injuries last season and really never got off the mat because of it. So everybody's had a chance to stay healthy. And I see Toronto at the top of this group. And I see them at the top of this group because they're better defensively, as I've mentioned. And I like what Frederik Andersen, with that big carrot being dangled in front of him, UFA at season's end. And this is a chance for him to prove himself. But to get back to your original question, Montreal's going to be competitive, and they'll be somewhere in I think the top four of that mix up here in Canada.
Very controversial from the Leafs' perspective to fire Mike Babcock when they did and bring in Sheldon Keefe as their new coach. What were your thoughts to that?
So I remember coming in off that trip. We were in Arizona and practicing in Scottsdale, and Mike comes out after the skate at the Coyotes practice facility and talks to us and joking and all of these other things. And then I'm in a Uber with the voice of the team, Joe Bone, heading back to our hotel when I get a text that Mike has been fired, and we're both looking at each other and going, what? So back to the hotel, got changed, and then out to another part of Phoenix in the greater Scottsdale area to meet with Brendan Shanahan and Kyle Dubas and to get the word. We were surprised. As far as maybe the team was, maybe not. Maybe they were looking big picture that they had to get something done and done soon to get back into playoff contention. The club was really just treading water. And interesting enough, a night later in Arizona, and Tyson Barrie scores his first goal of the season, literally got the monkey off his back. I think a lot of the guys were just a little more relieved that this had been done. And then the getting to know Sheldon Keefe acclamation party had officially begun. Well, both sides know each other, and every coach is hired to be fired. There's a shelf life for all. Mike is one of the greatest coaches of all time. You just look down his resume. But I think he had gone as far as he could go with this team. I'm not saying they stopped playing for him, but in certain nights, especially a couple of games last year, and one specifically in Pittsburgh, where the Leafs have their backup goaltender in nets, Kazimir Kaskasuo, if I recall correctly, and there was just no suitable effort put in front of him on a night where these guys should have been diving left and right and working as hard as they could have done to block shots and do all they did, much like Carolina did with David Ayres when the top two goalies go down for that club in Mrazek and Reimer, and a Zamboni driver from and the practice goalie with the Toronto Marlies has to come in. All he saw were 9 shots through the rest of that game. The Leafs didn't provide that kind of effort for Kazimir Kaskasuo in Pittsburgh. And yeah, I just think, Ashley, that a change had to be made. It was made, and onward we move. And I no doubt that Mike is going to end up somewhere coaching a hockey club, and he's going to be great for that club. But his time was done in Toronto, and a couple of those games kind of put an exclamation mark on that sentiment.